Can anybody hear me, please? Thank you.
Okay. Ready to go.
Hey, welcome everyone to Committee of the Whole this colder than usual April day on April the 18th. I'd like to call the meeting to order at 11:06 a.m. and thank everyone for joining us in person and online this morning. I would like to acknowledge that the work of the City of Maple Ridge, it carries out its business on the traditional unceded territories of the Katzie First Nation and the Kwantlen First Nation. And Mr. Havlik-Windsor, can you please provide us with an overview of the meeting procedures this morning?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning. This meeting is being live streamed and recorded and will be available to the public for playback on our website in accordance with Council Policy 3.12. Committee of the Whole is the initial venue for council review of information to ensure that council can debate and vote on issues at a future council meeting. No voting takes place on bylaws or resolutions during Committee of the Whole, and the meeting is being conducted through the city's one meeting platform. Today, we are still going to be using red, green, and yellow cards to indicate your votes. So once an item comes up, if you could please raise your green card if you're in agreement, red if you're opposed, or yellow for a point of order. And for the public forum component, if you are participating electronically, please register as a speaker by clicking on the microphone icon in the one meeting portal and turn on your camera and clearly state your name and city of residence at the beginning of your comments. And similar process if you're in the room, if you could please give the corporate officer, me, the address before you start speaking so that we could have it for our records.
Thank you. And I think just before we go to approval of agenda, I think Mayor Rumi has a few comments he'd like to share with the community before we go into the official part of the meeting. Thank you.
Oh, finicky, isn't it? Well, thank you, Chair, for allowing me to take a few minutes and talk about National Volunteer Week from April 16th to April 22nd. The 2023 Volunteer Week theme is volunteering weaves us together, and our volunteers are incredible community builders that help create connections that make us strong and resilient. Volunteers are an essential part of the operation and culture of the City of Maple Ridge. They provide much needed support in recreational programming, crime prevention, environmental programs, festivals, emergency services, support services, youth services, and much more. Thousands of people also give their time and talents to raise money for charities, help school parent advisory councils, support youth and adult sports, arts groups, and support neighbors who need a helping hand. I want to share a couple of things that are happening this week that highlight our Maple Ridge volunteers. And I've said this even as an MP, across this country, Maple Ridge has the best volunteers ever. Ridge Meadows RCMP is highlighting some of the people that have dedicated their time supporting the successful delivery of community policing and crime prevention programs. Follow their social channels to learn more about these amazing volunteers and some of the opportunities available for you to support your community and serve your community. As part of Celebrate Earth Day on April 22nd, hosted by Ridge Meadows Recycling Society, the city will be in the park celebrating volunteers and providing information about upcoming volunteer opportunities. Stop by the city tent in Memorial Peace Park for a free treat. Wonder what that could be. And find out about the diverse opportunities that fit with your passions and your unique talents. I've said it before, and it bears repeating again, we're known for our natural settings, but our superpower is our volunteers, our dedicated and passionate volunteers. We saw firsthand from Craft Hockeyville what happens when people mobilize and rally around our city and some of the things that we are advocating for. On behalf of council, I want to take a moment to thank everyone in Maple Ridge who invests their time to make our community a great place to live. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much for those comments. And I think all of us echo those, that volunteers really do make this community, and they're very much the heart and soul of our communities. Thank you very much. And on to approval of the agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda? It's been moved by Councillor Duick, seconded by Councillor Youssef. Any sort of additions to the agenda? Seeing none. Are those in favor? I just need to make sure I can see Councillor Dozie. Okay, it's been approved. Okay, moving on to the minutes of March 28th. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes of March 28th? Mayor Rumi moved, seconded by Councillor Youssef. Any errors or omissions in those minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed, carried. Great, thank you. Okay, now moving on to item 5.1, Mr. Havlick-Windsor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The first item on the agenda is a rezoning from RS2 to RS1B, and it's to permit the future subdivision of approximately 3 R1 sized lots. And it's proposed to go for first reading. And Mr. Goddard is going to be doing the presentation.
Good afternoon, Council. Does feel like November, doesn't it?
It really does, doesn't it? And yeah, thank you. If you want to go ahead with your presentation, that'd be wonderful. Thank you, Mr.
Sure.
Goddard.
Our first item this afternoon is a small subdivision on 112th Avenue in the northwest side of Albion. It's for zoning application 7919-2023. It's for first reading only so far. Again, it's low to medium density residential. The proposal is essentially to move the site from RS2 to RS1B, with the bonus density in the Albion area will allow the lots to be on R1 sort of size, which is 371 minimum size area. These lots are similar to the other lots in the area who also benefited from the density bonus provision. Again, it's a 1 acre site. You should note that the dedication is going to probably be almost 65% of the site. So there's only going to be creating 3 lots on this 1 acre site because of the tributary to Dunlop Creek that exists on the southern portion of the site. I can't seem to advance this, Patrick, if you could help me there. There we are. There's the tributary to Dunlop Creek. It's a small portion of the site with its riparian area. It's going to be about 65% of the site preserved, with 3 lots created to the north. There is an existing house in the middle of the site. It's designated urban development, of course, with the watercourse area in the pea colored green color there. There's the large home. There'll be 2 lots to the north of it, and the riparian area will remain as dedication to the city and accommodate the lands to the west. A bigger park space. Again, it's in the Albion area. It's using the density bonus to get slightly smaller lots to the R1 size. They're paying the amenity bonus of $3,100 per lot, which is about $21,300 for the 3 lots being created. No OCP amendment is required except for the compensation boundary to be designated conservation. There is a preliminary subdivision plan. The existing house is on a much larger lot to accommodate it, and 2 smaller lots to the north. And the hatched area shows the park dedication of about almost 1/3 of the site, or 2/3 of the site. You can see why it's dedicated in the red. There's quite a bit of slope in that area. And there'll be some discussion we'll have on exact boundaries as we move forward once the subdivision and the watercourse DP is determined. So we're recommending it move forward. There does have to be an OCP amendment because of the watercourse adjustment, but nothing out of the ordinary here. Again, we're recommending we'll need a subdivision deed and watercourse DP to move forward with the application, but it's only first reading at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can I get a motion to move this to council? It's been moved by Councillor Youssef, seconded by Councillor Duick. Any questions? Again, it's committee of the whole, so it's just questions. So if I can. Councillor Youssef.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you to staff, just a real quick question on the waterway that's at the southwestern side of the property there, is that a significant waterway? Is it fish bearing, or will it ultimately be one that's benign?
Most likely in this case, it's just contributing water. I haven't seen the actual full environmental assessment yet, but it's a headwater to Dunlop Creek, the tributary to it. Dunlop Creek certainly does. It's a significant water course along 1/10 to the south, but it's most likely contributing water and food and nutrients to that system. It's unlikely, I would think, given there's a fairly large culvert to the south, but it's still of significance in the overall system. So it's being preserved. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Goddard. And again, through the chair to staff, with the parkland dedication, that means, to clarify, that the city will be responsible for maintaining the waterway and all of the ecosystem that currently exists?
That's a good question. Our watercourse development permit requires, it's probably in a fairly poor state right now for invasive species, and that it will be enhanced and preserved and fixed in a sense before it's dedicated to it under the responsibility of the developer. And yes, it will then become city responsibility, but these are kind of riparian zones. They're not active areas. They're going to be left to nature, but we do take a bond to ensure long-term maintenance for a few years into the future to ensure the invasive species are kept to a minimum. But eventually, as watercourse park area, it becomes the city's responsibility on the long haul. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Goddard. Thank you, Madam Chair. Those are my questions.
Thank you very much. I am not, so Councillor Tan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just have a question around that conservation area there through you. Is there an intention to turn that into a city park accessible by the public, or is that an intention to turn it into a conservation area?
Good question. These are simply watercourse setback areas, and they will most likely not even have a trail in this system because it's a very small, limited headwater area. It's not leading to anything. So it'll just be preserved for a natural state.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm not seeing any further questions. It has, Mayor Rumi.
Thank you very much for the presentation. I'm trying to understand, because this is a subdivision, right?
And a rezoning. Mhm.
And a rezoning. So when we look at the actual map and we see, so I'm not sure if you can get to that, but I'm just trying to pull it up online. So where you see the subject property, and then you have the water course. So where exactly is the proposed subdivision? So are we getting rid of, is it where all the trees are and the waterway is? Is that where the division is going to be?
There we are. You can see this is the overhead view of the site right now, and it's rather ill-defined between the existing home and the property to the south where the trees are. That's where the subdivision line will be created there. The existing home is too new to be demolished. So we will create a lot for the existing home, and 2 lots will then be created north as similar size to the neighborhood lots. But that distinct, if we go one forward, maybe that one there shows the proposed subdivision, and that line kind of shows between the hatched area and the non-hatched area are the areas that are considered developable and non-developable. So when we get to the subdivision stage, we'll actually finalize where that line is. But you can see the existing home is on a lot that's 861 meters squared. The zoning minimum lot size will be 371. Okay. So all 3 lots will be larger than the minimum zone. So we will figure out the details, but it looks like the subdivision is certainly possible.
So it's the 2 parcels that are above the house right now.
Correct.
On the top
That's
part
right.
of it.
That's right.
Okay. And then for the bottom portion, there's nothing planned for that at this point.
No, it will be basically preserved in the park, and the city will own it. It'll be dedicated to the city. Which is what we typically do for watercourse areas, to preserve them.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna try this again. Seeing no further questions. Give you guys a second. Okay, seeing no further questions. All those in favor? Opposed, carried. Thank you very much. On item 5.2, Mr. Haplick-Windsor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Item 5.2 is to permit a future construction of 17 dwelling units, and that it be advanced to second reading and forwarded to public hearing. I believe Mr. Goddard is doing this presentation as well. So give me 1 second, Mr.
Correct.
Goddard.
This application is in our urban area, close to the town center. It is through two properties at 12211 and 29228th Street. It's a major collector road, so it allows greater density. It's for second readings. It has had first reading previously under bylaw 7713/2021. It's proposing 17 units in a townhouse arrangement, 3 stories in size. Some variances will be required for setbacks to accommodate the proposal. It's ground-oriented multifamily. There is no OCP change requested here, and that ground-oriented multifamily is the designation for the land surrounding the site. So it's likely over the future you'll see a lot of this development in this area on both of the adjoining streets. It's proposed to be zoned RM1 low-density townhomes from a single family. This shows the site outlined in red and the surrounding properties. This shows the designation of the ground-oriented multifamily. It is within the town center. I'm sorry, it is. I notice now. So a lot of that area will be transformed over time. We're seeing some proposals of apartments on 227th and our 3 lots we've seen last week just to the west and east, sorry, in the yellow. So it's an area in a bit of transition. You see the site there. It has some trees on it, 2 single-family homes that will be removed if the proposal proceeds. So we have the zoning to townhomes to permit 17 units. They'll be slab on grade, no basements, 3 stories in height. That's permitted under the zone. 3 bedrooms, so it'll be fairly large units to accommodate families and that. There'll be 34 residential parking spaces. All the units are in double car garages. There are no tandems being proposed here. They are units that all internal parking garages with the visitor parking outside. So they do meet the parking bylaw in accordance with it. There is a community amenity charge based upon units for these forms of housing, and that'll total almost $70,000, which are a community amenity. Here are some variances that will be considered in the future. A front yard setback to 4.5 meters, which is a similar setback we see within the town center for apartments and townhomes. Reduced rear yard setback from 7.5 to 6.3, and interior side yard setbacks from 6 to 4.5, which are essentially in this case side yards. So we support those variances. This shows the layout. It's a simple layout, basically 1 driveway in with 2 lanes accessing the units in that configuration. So we're recommending it move forward under that bylaw 7712/2021, and we're recommending that we need a servicing agreement. We'll need various covenants, ministry of approval to ensure there's no contamination with the existing homes, which we have received already, and confirmation has been already given. We're moving those homes eventually when we go to final reading, and the amenity charge is about $70,000. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation, Mr.
You're
Goddard.
welcome.
Okay. Can I get a motion to move this to council? So moved by Councillor Youssef, seconded by Councillor Schiller. Okay, open it up for speaking and questions. Councillor Schiller.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to staff. I think there's something in there about a stormwater covenant, and I was wondering if you could just explain to me a little bit more about what that means.
Sure. There's probably a stormwater management covenant required for how the stormwater of the site is dealt with. There'll be some features created to accommodate that process, and they'll be protected to ensure they exist over the long term of the development. So they're protected. They can't be modified or changed. It's the situation. So it's just to ensure the stormwater management system will function in perpetuity.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Tan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a question around the EV charging here. I'm very happy to see the level 2 charging for half the stalls, a minimum of 1 of the 2 stalls. Has the applicant expressed any interest in providing EV charging for both the stalls for each unit?
I'm not sure if the applicant is online or not, or in the audience. I don't think so. Is there anything online? No. Counselor, I'm not sure about that question. I could certainly ask that for you and get that to you when we consider it at council.
Thank you. I look forward to that.
You're
Thank you,
welcome.
Madam Chair.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no further questions on this piece has been moved and seconded. All those in favor of moving it to council? Opposed, carried.
Thank you.
Very much. Okay, moving on to item 5.3. Mr. Havlick-Windsor, if you'd like to walk us through it.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The next application is a rezoning from RS1 to RT2, and it's to permit a future construction of a fourplex. And Mr. McMullen is going to be doing this presentation.
Thank you. The application here is being brought forward for second reading of zone amending bylaw 7816/2021. The designation in the Hammond area plan is low density multifamily. Existing zoning is single detached residential RS1 and is proposed to be rezoned to RT2 ground oriented residential infill. Site is approximately 1/4 acre and 4 units are proposed. This is the subject site, located at the corner of 114th Avenue and 207th Street with the lane to the north. This is the OCP designation map showing the low density multifamily designation, which the site is located within. And this is the ortho photo showing the existing built environment. So the application is noted is to rezone the properties to RT2, ground oriented residential infill, to permit a fourplex. The units in the project range from approximately 1,700 to 1,800 square feet, with each having 3 bedrooms and an office and flex space in the basement level. The proposal includes 2 driveways in the site. Each will access 2 units, one from the lane and one from 114th Avenue. There'll be 8 resident parking spaces provided as required. All are side-by-side, 2 garage configuration, and 1 bicycle parking stall will be accommodated in each garage unit. The application to proceed to completion, there would be a community amenity contribution of $22,800 payable for the project. The development is of a neo-traditional style and is oriented to 207th Avenue Street, rather, to create an attractive street presence. That's consistent with the policies of the plan that emphasize a heritage character. Although this is not specifically in the heritage character area, it is near the heritage character area in the plan. Each unit has a pedestrian access to the main floor, as well as a basement access to each of the 3 units. There's decorative fencing, landscaping to create separation from the street, as you would find in a neo-traditional type of single family home or row home, and provide separation between each unit. And there's a primary outdoor space that's being provided in the form of a patio for each unit. This is a subject site plan showing the project located at the corner of 207th and 114th Avenue, with the existing lane at the north, with the 1 driveway coming down to provide access to the parking for 2 of the units, and the other driveway coming out from 114th Avenue to provide access for parking for 2 of the other units to the south. These are perspective renderings of the project from the different street angles of the property and frontages. And these are some elevations from all sides, from the east, west, and north and south. The north and south are facing, of course, the 114th Avenue to the south, and the north elevations facing the lane. And the west elevation is a prominent elevation facing 207th. So the recommendations are before you, so I'll just briefly summarize them. Would be the registration of a standard rezoning agreement and covenant, and receipt of the security deposit for the servicing agreement. Road dedication on the lane and corner truncation or corner cut as required. A geotechnical report would be required to be reviewed by staff and registered on title as a covenant. And there'd be a stormwater management covenant registered on title, and registration of a covenant prohibiting secondary suites and removal of the existing building. There would also be the standard requirement to confirm that there's no underground fuel storage tanks that could be a problem for the proposed development, the existing single family house that's there. The voluntary contribution is for the community amenity contribution is $22,800, or any such rate that be applicable at 3rd reading of this bylaw. Madam Chair and Committee.
Thank you very much, Mr. McMullen, for your presentation. Okay, can I get a motion to move this to council? It's been moved by Mayor Rumi and seconded by Councillor Youssef. Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. Questions from council? Councillor Tan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have two questions, one around bike parking and the second around EV charging. The first question around bike parking, I noticed it said there'd be one bike parking space inside the enclosed garage. Could you explain to me sort of what that looks like? Is that any different from sort of a bike being parked in the garage?
It would just be a space allocated in the garage for the parking of the bike in a template. It's not a specific facility like you would find in a larger multifamily project.
So it'd be like a painted line in the garage. sort of
Yes,
thing?
yes.
Okay. The second question around parking, I notice it's 2 stalls per unit. Has the developer spoken about level 2 charging provided for these lots?
Not to my knowledge, but we can follow up with the applicant.
I
on
look
that.
forward to that. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Councillor Dweck.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I believe the applicant is online if we want to ask the question about the charging.
Madam Chair, yes, and that is John Newmeyer. Let me see if I can unmute him.
Good morning, Council.
Good morning. Did you catch the question from Councillor Chan around level 2 charging?
Yes, and I don't see an issue as long as the hydro infrastructure would support the level 2 charging. 1 per unit, I think seems manageable. I'm not too sure about 2, just due to the provisions for BC Hydro.
Thank you. Councillor Tan?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you so much for answering my question. A question about, you mentioned there one would likely be manageable. Thank you, and the second might be challenging. Could you speak to what challenges might occur with providing charging for the second parking slot?
Mr. Meunier, are you there? Are you?
Yep, can you hear me?
Yep, there we go.
Currently on our site plan, we haven't designated any spot for an LPT or low profile transformer. These are these boxes that you see scattered around for BC Hydro. Currently, we're proposing that servicing be done from a dip service from pole into the units. At this time, we're unsure that adding the additional charging increases the load and the demand on BC Hydro, especially if all 8 stalls have to be charged at the same time. Sometimes you can make them where they switch on and off, so one is active, the other becomes disabled to balance that load. Having all 8 is quite a high demand, and at that point we may need a transformer on site located instead of coming off of a pole.
Thank you, Mr. Meunier. I look forward to hearing more about that if the application goes forward, perhaps, and what might be necessary from staff or council to help facilitate that. Thank you for your thoughtfulness around that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions on this one? I have just a quick question. It's on the actual zoning, the RT2. So just underneath the zoning bylaw, it refers to this being a new zone, but I know I've seen it in other packages. I think it's in one of the ones going to hearing today. I'm just curious, how new is this zone?
Madam Chair, it's several years old now, actually. I would be,
Okay.
I think 3 years old, the zone, so.
Okay,
Might
it's just
be-
because I saw it referenced as this new zone and I was
Yes,
curious how long it'd been around. All right, so it's losing its shine on the news.
yes, might
Okay.
not note that in the next report.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. I'm not seeing any other questions, just one last. Nope, okay, it's been moved and seconded to council. All those in favor? Opposed, carried. Thank you very much. On item number 5.4, Mr. Havlick-Windsor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The next item is a development variance permit to vary the rear yard and eastern interior setbacks of 22488 129th Avenue. And do we have a presentation for this one as well?
Yes. So the application, as noted, is for this address at 22488 129th Avenue. The applicant, Mr. Carl Jacobson, or his partner should be available online. This existing designation is agricultural. The existing zoning is RS3, single detached rural residential. It's proposed to stay the same. Site is approximately 4 acres and has a single family home located on it right now. Variances to allow for a riding stable and connecting riding arena. The subject property is located in the agricultural land reserve and has an agricultural use and residential uses. The proposed variance is required to allow for a stable and connecting riding ring to be located at the southeastern portion of the lot. The variance is requested to allow for functional vehicle access to the hayloft by supporting sufficient place for turnarounds for trucks for the stable. This is the subject property located on 129th Avenue, 224th, a little ways to the west, and the subject property with existing natural vegetation and built environment shown on it. And the variance proposed is specifically to reduce the rear yard setback from 30 meters to 23 meters and to reduce the eastern interior side yard setback from 15 to 12 meters. Madam Chair and Committee.
Thank you very much. Can I get a motion to recommend this to council? So moved by Councillor Youssef, seconded by Councillor Dueck. Questions and comments? Sorry, not comments, just questions. Need to be clear. Go ahead, Councillor Youssef.
No comments, Madam Chair. I will only ask questions. Thank you. And thank you, Mr. McMillan, for the presentation. Through the chair, will the stable and arena require water and sewer services?
The stable would require water service for the function. I don't believe they have sewer service in the area, and it wouldn't be required for a stable.
Thank you for that. And through the chair, as I see on the application, the service requirement is rural standard. Would you be so kind as to clarify what rural standard means? I understand it'll be a septic system. What level of septic will it be?
Oh, any septic field required for the stable, if there are washrooms or other waste disposal, would be regulated through Fraser Health and the permit for a on-site sewage disposal system at the time of building permit.
Thank you. Through the chair, the city does not have the regulatory power to work with the currently existing system or to possibly upgrade it for the now new use that will be put in, correct?
That's correct.
Thank you for that. Thank you, Madam Chair. Those are my questions.
Thank you. Any other questions on this? Seeing none, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed, carried. Thank you very much. Moving on to item 7.1. Mr. Havlick-Windsor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The next item, 7.1, pertains to the first, second, and third readings of the financial plan bylaw. And Mr. Thompson is going to be doing the presentation for this one.
Thank you. So I'll introduce this item and then ask Dan Olivery to assist with respect to the public consultation. So the 2023 through 2027 financial plan bylaw that's before you is in consolidated format. It's a one-pager. It's quite summary. It's in a prescribed format based on the provincial legislation. Because it's so summary, that's why we provide such detail with respect to the financial plan overview report. What's in the bylaw was direction based on the corporate plan and financial plan overview and business planning process that council went under at the end of March. So the 2 days of presentations and the material associated with that. Typically at this time of year, we also amend the financial plan to include work in progress. And this is items that were approved in prior years' budgets that are still underway. An example of this would be the ice sheet. So capital works and other works that are underway are also included in this budget. And we amend at this point in time because we received the finalized assessment rule. So we're able to set the tax rates and we received that at the end of March. So based on the council direction provided through business planning and the 5.65% property tax increase, I would just like to highlight the fact that the 565 is on our total revenue. It'll vary widely based on assessed values. And this point was raised in earlier meetings and commented that we have some sample properties that we show differences to. And that's attached to actually the tax rates bylaw. So there's 8 properties that we follow over time, and it shows the variability based on changes in assessed value. If residents are interested in getting an estimate, an early peek at what their 2023 property taxes will actually be, we have on our website updated based on the updated rates for municipal and other agencies, the property tax estimator. So that's on our website for additional information. And now I'll pass it on to Dan for the public consultation.
Good morning, council. At the end of business planning, the city launched a public engagement process with the community with regard to the proposed financial plan. The engagement period took place between March 31st and April 14th using the city's Engage Maple Ridge platform. That platform itself included a number of different pieces of information. All of the content that was provided during business planning, but some additional content such as some of the enhancements and pressures the city is experiencing with regard to the budget, and then the average home impact, and some methodologies for how residents could calculate their potential property tax impact through the estimator tool. In addition, over this period, the public was invited to provide feedback by way of the budget inbox, which is an email inbox that is monitored by staff and responded to by staff. The city residents were invited to participate by way of the city website, a media release through engagement of the mayor's minute video, and then a series of social media posts that reached quite a number of Maple Ridge residents. So the Engage Maple Ridge platform breaks down public participation in 3 different segments. In total, we had 388 visitors, and of those 388, visits to the site, of those 308 visits, 388 unique users became aware of the content of the financial plan and the content of the site by reviewing the landing page. Of those 333, 111 were informed by downloading content such as the financial overview report, visited multiple web pages, or contributed to a survey tool. Those who contribute to the survey tool are considered also engaged. And so we had 55 members of the public who engaged in that survey tool. Additionally, we received 6 entries into our budget inbox. So what we heard, the public was provided an opportunity to rank the top priorities with regard to the current budget. We've through this ranking exercise, we actually had 4 priorities that were identified simply because there was a tie for an allocation. So the first one was attracting new businesses and employers. Public safety and emergency services came in second place with 21 votes. And then transportation infrastructure as well as recreation facilities were the 3rd ranked entry in terms of budget priorities. As a quick reminder for council as well as for the viewing public, there was a whole host of activities that are proposed as part of this budget with regard to these priorities. I've listed a few of them here on the screen with regard to attracting new businesses and public safety. And for your consideration, there's a retail market analysis that's proposed as part of the budget that's being led by the Economic Development Department. This budget also includes additional RCMP officers to increase public safety and response. With regard to transportation infrastructure, there's continued development of the strategic transportation plan, as well as significant improvements to the Abernathy Way corridor and a multi-use path on Highway 7. From a recreation facilities perspective, with the adoption of the Parks, Recreation and Culture Master Plan, we are also moving forward with, as part of this budget, site assessment for an aquatic facility, as well as feasibility review for a 5th ice sheet. So again, these are just some of the activities that were discussed during business planning with regard to each of these priorities. In addition to the ranking exercise, the public was asked to provide feedback on written feedback through an open-ended survey question. So as you may recall, we had 55 individuals complete the survey. Only 33 actually completed the text component, in addition to the 6 emails that we received. Our system is able to provide a bit of sentiment analysis with regard to contributions within those text entries. So for unfortunately, this slide is not updated, but I will provide you with some numbers here. So we actually had 5 users who were in support of the proposed financial plan, and they were identified as being in support because they invested in key priorities that they identified for our community. We had a further 16 users who came back with neutral sentiment with regard to their contributions. Their contributions spoke directly to commentary and feedback with regard to necessity for additional business attraction and improvements to our traffic network. We had a couple of mixed users, so that was 2 users who responded that walkability and traffic network improvements were vital, but did not provide very strong feedback in support or not in support of the proposed financial plan. And that was 16 users who were not in support of the proposed increase within the proposed financial plan. Finally, we had 22 users who provided no information with regard to support either way for the financial plan. Another question that we provided, that we asked respondents for through the survey was on future budget communications. In recognition that this was an abbreviated engagement period, we want to be able to tailor future iterations to really meet the needs of the community. The public identified that there's a desire to have more information on where budget dollars are allocated across departments, how to provide input on the financial plan, and then just generally on the budget process itself. So as we move forward with the subsequent budget process, we're going to look to create more robust tools to inform the public in these areas. The feedback methods that were preferred are online surveys, virtual open houses, and then public hearings and forums such as this, where the public has an opportunity to provide feedback through an open feedback period. So in summary, the commentary acknowledges that there are inflationary pressures that are experienced by the city, but that the residents of Maple Ridge are also experiencing those same inflationary pressures. There's a desire to strengthen services and infrastructure across the community, and acknowledgement that there is a cost associated with those enhancements. There's also a desire from the public to have greater awareness about the budget and its process, and the staff are working towards providing that in future iterations as well. Generally speaking, there's about 12% of that subset of respondents who are in support of the proposed budget. Mixed and neutral respondents came in at about 46%, which is 18 users. And then those not in support were 16 users of those who provided input. And that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions on the engagement period, or I invite Mr. Thompson to take any questions with regard to the proposed financial plan.
Thank you very much to both of you for your presentation. There's a lot of work that's gone into this. This is not an easy task at all. Okay, so just for clarity for council, again, this is just committee of the whole. So the motion that we need is just to move it to council, and the actual debate will be next Tuesday, the 25th. 25th. I was like, what's the date? And so again, this is just for questions of clarification. So if we can just get a motion to move this forward to council. It's been moved by Councillor Schiller, seconded by Councillor Dueck. Okay, those who would like to ask questions, you want to just raise, let me know. Councillor Schiller.
Thank you, Chair. And yes, thank you to staff for all of that. My question is just around the 5.6% that was identified. Is that a rate that is paid by both residences and businesses? I just sort of realized I wasn't totally clear on that when we got to the end.
Thank you for the question. So yes, it is, with the exception of the utility class, which has a provincial cap to it. So the same rate is applied to all property classes.
Thank you. That's all.
Okay, Councillor Ted.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you for the presentation about the engagement process. I recognize it's a shorter engagement process, but I think it would have been useful for me if that the engagement results could have been provided in the written document. So it gives me a little more time to process here. So if we could, again, respecting that, I know it was a abbreviated engagement process, but if we could maybe provide that information before the next council meeting, that might be useful for me. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And I think the challenge was the consultation closed on Friday and our packages went live on Friday. So it's a bit of a gap, but when the actual debate happens, it'll be next week and there may be more opportunity.
Thank you for the clarification. I know it's a big process, so thank you for that.
Yeah. Thank you. Mayor Rumi.
Thank you for your presentation. I'm more interested in for future engagement. How did we, when we looked at the information that we've got back from Engage Maple Ridge, and this is a relatively new platform, just curious to know how we felt it went on there. Is this a tool that we can enhance? Can we get it out to more people? Is it getting back the information? Is it reaching the people that we want? So I'm just curious that, for future purposes.
In terms of engagement, I would suggest that we now have the data to determine what our baseline is. Whereas previously it was much more challenging as our engagement or feedback occurred via email or by phone. And so now we're able to understand how many residents are actually engaging passively with the content and wanting to get informed. Maybe they don't want to provide feedback, but they're actually engaging with the content. So this is really a good first step in understanding our baseline and then tailoring an approach to improving those metrics.
So we'll be using this for a future improvement. I guess that's the whole point, is to be able to increase the amount of folks that are hearing what we're doing and engaging with us one way or another. So I'm hearing that it's positive, that the platform is good to use, but there's still room for improvement for down the line.
Through the chair, yes, there is. And in alignment with Council's draft strategic plan, where one priority and goal is to improve and enhance engagement with the public, we will look for methods to get this information out there and to use our social media reach and other methods of connection with the community to promote this site and its usability, because it is very functional and usable from a user perspective to be able to provide feedback. So yes, we are looking at this platform to be able to encourage engagement.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, I just want to double check if there's any other first speakers before I go, or first seeing none. Councillor Dempsey. Okay, go ahead, Councillor Tan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick note. I'm just thinking about the survey. Thank you as well for that. I see a lot of thoughtfulness in the questions around the tell us around about yourself section. I see a lot of work put into that. So thank you for that. And I just want to put a small note there that when we provide council engagement survey results, I would like to see that breakdown as well, please. That would be useful for me. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Okay, not seeing any more questions on this. It's been moved and seconded to move it to council next week. All those in favor? Opposed, carried. Thank you. I look forward to the debate on this next week. Moving on to item 7.2. Mr. Havlicek, would you like to walk us or start us off on 7.2?
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a continuation of property tax rates. And I believe that we have another presentation for the property tax rates bylaw 7927-2023.
Thank you, through the chair. There's not another presentation. It's entirely linked and tied to the financial plan conversation. So it really is the mechanism to increase the 5.65% tax increase. Thank you.
Okay, so I just want to, just a quick question of clarification before we just move it. So the previous one was about sort of the framework or bylaw. This one is specific to the tax rates. Okay, just to clarify for the
Correct.
For council. Okay, and someone has been moved by Councillor Youssef, seconded by Councillor Duick, and that's to move it to council next week. Any questions on this? Councillor Youssef.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Just a real quick question. Will the same tax rates be applied to the Albion and Road 13 Diking District?
So I think that's the next item on the agenda, actually, and it is the same percentage tax increase. Yeah. So the 5.65, correct.
Thank you. Thank you for that clarification. Thank you, Madam Chair. That was my question.
Thank you. Okay, I'm not seeing any other questions. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor of moving this to council next week? Okay, opposed, it's carried. Thank you very much. Moving on to item 7.3, Mr. Havlicek.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This pertains to the Albion and Maple Ridge Road 13 Diking districts, and this is to set the tax rate bylaws. Is Mr. Thompson willing to speak to this as well?
No presentation from staff.
And there's no
okay, so why don't we move this to move this to our council meeting next week? It's been moved by Councillor Duick, seconded by Councillor Youssef. Any questions on this? Not seeing any questions. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Oh, is that a question or is that an early vote?
It's a vote.
Okay, perfect. Just want to double check. Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed, carried. Thank you. Okay, moving on to item number 10, which is the community forum piece.
Actually,
Nope.
Madam Chair, we do have one more item, 7.4, and this
Sorry.
is the intermunicipal license agreement.
Yes,
Law
sorry.
7622-2022 replacement. And Ms. Orsetti is going to be doing a presentation on this.
I'm sorry about that. I skipped over 7.4. I apologize. Go ahead when you're ready.
No worries, and it's Mrs. Adams. Thank you, Patrick. So thank you, Madam Chair and Council, for allowing me to speak today. What we're going to be talking about is ride hailing. And just to go back a bit, on April 1st, 2020, the City of Maple Ridge adopted its first bylaws regarding ride hailing, to allow ride hailing in Maple Ridge, such as Uber, Lyft, and Caboo, amongst others. But I want to go back to a little bit of a history for this council, because you weren't here when we enacted the bylaws, and I just want you to know how it all came about. So on April 1st, like I said, we adopted the intermunicipal TNS business license agreement bylaw and the intermunicipal TNS business license bylaw. And basically the business license agreement bylaw is just an agreement between the participating municipalities to allow us to share information and regulations about ride hailing. And the reason it's done is because the City of Vancouver is the host municipality for ride hailing. So they hold all the business licenses for our region. And at the end of the year, depending on trips made, there's a revenue portion that's distributed out to the rest of the municipalities at the end of each year. So going back on November 28th, 2018, the ministry decided to regulate taxis and introduce ride hailing into British Columbia and to streamline processes throughout. So that started November 28th, 2018. Then on July 8th, 2019, Bill 55 was deposited. On September 16th, 2019, the new rules took effect. And these bylaws were created with all participating municipalities, which leads us. So actually, I just want to go back a bit. So the reason the ministry did this was to modernize transportation network services. So safety of passengers and drivers, protection of accessibility services, consistency and fairness throughout the region, to reduce regulatory overlap and data-driven decisions. So through the program, each municipality is given some data on transportation issues to help us manage our streets with the new regulations. So this is our current roles defined, the ministry, the Passenger Transportation Board, and municipalities. So under municipalities, we can control business licensing for businesses that are operating within our community, so they're home bases here. And we can also regulate street and traffic. But the ministry and the Passenger Transportation Board has taken over some of the roles that cities used to do, including issuing municipal chauffeur permits. So this is what BC looks like. We are Region 1, Lower Mainland, Squamish, and Whistler, and you can see us in the red there. So since these bylaws were enacted, 3 other municipalities would like to join Region 1. So basically, this is all that we're here for today, is to include the City of Mission, the District of Hope, and the District of Kent into our Region 1 ride hailing IMBL group. And so what all municipalities had to do to to get here today was everyone has to introduce their bylaws at the same time and have them adopted at the same time throughout our region. And this will create a fair playing field for all municipalities. So this is our region on a map, and the new signatories will be Hope, Kent, and Mission. So basically that's it. So we're going to be repealing the old bylaws, introducing the new bylaws, and the only changes are 3 new municipalities. And if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you very much. So why don't we get a motion to move this to council, and then we can open it up for question. It's been moved by Councillor Schiller, seconded by Councillor Youssef to move this to council. Any questions? Not seeing any questions. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. You look like you're thinking you might have a question.
I'm always thinking.
Yeah. I mean, this will come back to council for debate. Yeah. Questions, clarification.
That's fine.
You're good? Okay. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed, carried. Great. Thank you very much. Okay, now on to community forum. So would you like to walk us through the parameters around community forum?
Sure, Madam Chair. Participants in the community forum are reminded that there should be no discussion of public hearing bylaws which have not yet reached conclusion. Each speaker will be provided with 2 minutes to speak to council. A second opportunity may be provided once all speakers in the queue had an opportunity to speak. Total time allotted for community forum is 15 minutes. So with that, I'm going to see if we have anyone online or in the room who would like to speak.
No, I'm not seeing anybody in the room moving their way to the mic, and online it's just a digital hand they put up. We're not seeing anything. All right, well, thank you very much to the community and for attending tonight. So the next item on the agenda is adjournment. So I would like to adjourn this meeting at 12:01 p.m. and thank everybody for staying with us the last hour, and enjoy the rest of your afternoon. And of course, we have public hearing tonight at 7, which you're all going to tune into and watch.